So I'm here with Joe Lovinger, who just wrote a big story for us on Nate Paul, who's this Austin developer, wonderkind, who stitched together this giant portfolio and essentially was the king of Austin real estate for a while until it all started going really, really bad. So Nate Paul's been fighting off foreclosures on a plethora of properties already, but now we have him at the center of something far more serious. So what's going on currently? We'll get back into his, kind of his shenanigans over the years, but what is going on right now, Joe?
Yeah. So last night, the Texas legislature announced, there was this investigation committee, and they had been looking into the Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, on corruption charges. And they had this bombshell report that, in a 3-hour meeting detailed all sorts of allegations of bribery, misuse of office, all of these things. And at the center of it was this Austin developer, Nate Paul. And there have been rumors, for years sort of swirling that Nate and Ken Paxton had this inappropriate relationship. But this was the clearest sort of, official allegation yet of the details of that relationship.
And this is more than the whole. So, Texas is no stranger to political corruption or allegations of impropriety. There's been some recent stuff with Justice Clarence Thomas and mega developer Harlan Crow. But this is way beyond that, right? Based on what has been documented by these investigators, we're talking about some serious levels of corruption here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, corruption in politics and real estate particularly goes back, Lyndon Johnson's political rise, you can trace to,
probably biblical times. Let's just say.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. But, this is a step above, it details Ken Paxton, using the powers of his office as the Attorney General to help Nate in some of his legal battles over, foreclosures and his properties that have, been under threat of foreclosure in the last few years. And I gotta think. Yeah, I don't know. It's a big deal.
It's sort of and do you think that, so he's had a lot of troubles with his portfolio in general, and this has all been happening as he's been giving to the AG's office, correct? Like he's been donating, but in the midst of all that, he's been battling not one, not two, but seems like a lot of properties are under fire right now.
Dozens. Yeah, dozens. There have been, dozens of these cases where his properties are, threatened with foreclosure, and he puts the ownership entity into bankruptcy to stave off that foreclosure, and it drags out into this whole grinding legal battle. And so it's been happening for years now. And the allegations with Paxton, there are some that, detail him helping Nate with these legal battles, but also, just sort of strange, almost sloppy things where Nate allegedly hired Paxton's mistress for a job, and just things that read like they're out of like a bad crime novel,
right. A pulpy crime novel.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Yeah.
And so what is interesting about this guy? I mean, he's not a regular developer. There's so many, developers who come across and have their brush with the law and all that, but this was in the kind of the pantheon of real estate players in Austin. This guy was there, right? He's one of the big guys.
Yeah, the people I've talked to say that Nate was sort of one of the first people to see the potential of Austin as a city, not just a regional player, but a national destination. And Nate had a really good eye for where the ball was going. So he still owns a lot of development sites that would, make for blockbuster developments if he were to develop them. And so no one really questions that he's, a really talented developer and player in the real estate space. But he's run into these troubles with, foundations suing him, investors suing him, and it kind of derails all of that for him.
And so I saw that he's quite young. I believe he's 35 or 36 years old. How did he put together this portfolio so quickly? Where did his money come from?
Yeah, he started raising institutional capital fairly early, pulled in, I think, $25 million from the Austin Police Department pension fund a few years into the business.
And these are generally the kind of investors who look for a very long track record before they commit money, right? I think that's the fascinating thing here, is that they're normally dealing with the absolute blue chip, long established investors, but they gave money to a 20-something kid at the time.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's the thing with him, is that he's, no one's questioning that he was making good investments, that he, had a good eye for the scene. and he grew up in Austin. He, has been flipping apartments since he was in college at UT. So he knew the scene very well, and he knew how to present himself to investors. And yeah, it just kind of fell apart.
So what do you think happens now? What does it look like on the political stuff at the moment? Is he required to show up at court? Is he supposed to, has there been any details? I know it's quite early.
Yeah, I know that the articles of impeachment were just passed out to the legislature, so they still have to vote on that. And I don't believe that a date's been set on when that will be voted on. But it's already a miraculous situation where, Texas, the House, the Senate, the governor's mansion, it's all, Republican controlled. And so these are people from Paxton's own party that are calling for his head. And he has pushed back. He claimed that the House Speaker was drunk while he was presiding over the chamber. Like, he's really trying to, sling mud everywhere he can. And it's a messy situation all around. So I don't know when that vote will take place, but that's sort of the next thing to keep in mind here.
And meanwhile, it's not like he can only deal with this one thing at a time. He's also got to handle all these foreclosure battles around his empire, correct?
Yeah, he's, active in court right now on some of these battles. And he also is, trying to make a comeback. I know that he's been buying back some of the assets that went to foreclosure, or at least trying to. Mm-hmm. He lost some of his prime parcels. A big South Congress development site was bought by Related. He lost the 3M campus, but he still is confident that he'll be able to have a second act here. And, he did sell his self-storage business for $588 million. He has some cash from that deal that he can use. And again, no one questioned the investment, thesis on a lot of these deals. So
yeah, it's crazy because some of the pioneers and visionaries in this market, and he would definitely qualify as one of them, sometimes they move a little too fast or a little too soon. And what can happen is that the next more established old coot sort of comes in this case Related, on one of the properties, and reaps all those rewards. But the vision was actually someone else's. So it's going to be a super interesting story to watch, and look forward to your next byline on it. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you so much.